Hello, I am Shauna the Lore Hunter, and where the f is Elden Ring? We learned some basics about the game in June, which I covered and discussed the crap out of, and since then, practically nothing. Since Dark Souls 2, Fromsoft has more or less maintained a release cycle of revealing at E3 in June, presenting a demo at Gamescom/TGS in the fall, and releasing around March of the following year. But Gamescom/TGS came and went without news, so the hope now is some morsel of information at the Game Awards in December. Given all of this, you'd think that the community around Elden Ring would be tucked tight into their graves, hollowed beyond repair. But they're not. Well, the latter may be true, but the former certainly isn't. There are active threads speculating about the gameplay, fan art being created, and even a whole world of fake lore. Looking through all of it, someone could certainly start to see a picture form showing what the community wants and expects out of Elden Ring. But I mean, who's going to waste their time sifting through all of that? Me. I'm that person. So benefit from my misery, fellow Hollow. If Fromsoftware won't talk about Elden Ring with us, then we're going to look at trends and recurring topics and see what we hope Fromsoftware tells us when they do talk. In June, Miyazaki said that the combat of Elden Ring is based heavily on Dark Souls, and that he sees Elden Ring as a more natural evolution of Dark Souls. Consequently, many of the most commonly recurring topics are discussing what aspects Elden Ring will take, and how it will build off of Dark Souls. At 66 unique posts on the Elden Ring subreddit, magic is one of the most common topics. Specifically, how can magic be improved upon or expanded in Elden Ring? While there are a spectrum of opinions regarding the effectiveness and fun of using magic in the Souls games, there is unilaterally the hope that Elden Ring will present us with a new bag of tricks. And I think there's a decent chance that this will happen. The different types of magic in Dark Souls were heavily built into the lore, so that is one aspect where FromSoft will have to start fresh. However, this didn't stop FromSoft from largely using magic as different colored magic missiles or weapon buffs in Dark Souls. What makes me think that magic could receive a mechanical overhaul is that the premise for Elden Ring, as stated by Miyazaki, is to create a new dark fantasy action RPG full of things that we weren't able to do in the Dark Souls series. A new magic system is not necessarily implied here, but seems more likely when you consider that Miyazaki has also stated that Elden Ring will include a wide variety of weapons, magic, and ways to engage enemies, that makes it possible to provide users with a style of gameplay and strategy that suits them. Even when compared to Dark Souls, I believe that this title will provide even more variety in the ways for players to overcome challenges and tweak their tactics when facing enemies. Again, this does not specifically imply a new magic system in Elden Ring, and you could just as easily use these quotes to make an argument for mounted combat or Shadow of the Colossus style climbing combat. But these quotes can provide some dangerous hope for the many people looking for a revamped magic system in Elden Ring. At roughly 100 posts on the Elden Ring subreddit, and also easily the most commonly recurring comment I've seen on my Elden Ring so far videos, multiplayer is something that people want in Elden Ring. For many, online multiplayer is what keeps them coming back to the Souls games for hundreds of hours. And while most of the comments I've seen would be content simply for a version of the Dark Souls Online multiplayer to exist, a fair number of people also want refinement in this arena, sometimes literally. I'm definitely not the guy to speak to the intricacies of Souls multiplayer and how Elden Ring might improve upon it, but luckily that video popping up in the right hand corner does that for me. While I might be more of a single player guy, one of my favorite aspects of Dark Souls is the asynchronous multiplayer. I remember when Sekiro came out, a recurring sentiment was that while Sekiro made its case for single player solidly, there was something lost by not seeing messages, bloodstains, and phantoms populating the world. Community has always been an integral part of the Souls experience, and being able to traverse the dark and brutal worlds of Dark Souls alone, but together, is one of the aspects of the series that makes it so special. And speaking personally, it has always been my wish that FromSoft would return to the weird online features present in Dark Souls. In this article from 2015, Illusory Wall takes the words out of my mouth. He talks about how elements like vagrants, gravelording, and ringing bells added to the mystery of Dark Souls in a really cool way. Those mysterious elements were a non-trivial factor in bringing the community together. These strange, opaque mechanics were not perfect by any means, but they brought players together as they tried to solve the enigma of Dark Souls. Multiplayer is probably the most significant unconfirmed aspect of Elden Ring. Whether you're a Dick Wraith, a Sombro, or a single player heathen, there's a real desire for meaningful community interaction during the game. Which is why it honestly surprises me that Sekiro shows up as a recurring topic almost twice as often at 201 posts on the Elden Ring subreddit. Sekiro shows up for a variety of reasons that broadly ask how Sekiro might influence Elden Ring, but by far the most common topics are how Sekiro might influence the combat and traversal of Elden Ring. I've discussed Sekiro's potential contributions to Elden Ring before in Elden Ring So Far Episode 2, so I won't reiterate everything I brought up there, but basically, the combat and traversal in Sekiro were tied heavily into the game's mission to create a deep experience taking on the singular role of the shinobi. The deflection system was designed around having a single main weapon, and the grappling hook and swimming were designed around being a light and stealthy shinobi. Elden Ring, in contrast, aims to provide an unprecedented breadth of experiences in the vastness of its world and RPG elements. That isn't to say that there's no chance Sekiro will contribute elements to Elden Ring, I just think it's more likely that they would be included in part and not wholesale. And as far as traversal goes, we already know a horse is part of the experience, which dramatically changes how we will experience the world in Elden Ring versus Dark Souls. What I see with these commonly recurring topics of discussion is that while people are excited for Fromsoft to return to an action RPG in the vein of Dark Souls, they want it to be a fresh experience. Stated previously, Fromsoft is explicitly trying to create a new dark fantasy action RPG, full of things they weren't able to do in the Dark Souls series, so it seems like they feel the same way. That being said, will they be able to provide an overhauled magic system, revamped multiplayer, and incorporate elements of Sekiro's combat into Elden Ring? That seems like a big ask, especially if you consider that they're also designing their largest world and story to date, and figuring out the whole horse thing. So I would be surprised if all of these big items people want in Elden Ring come to fruition, but who knows. I think it's easy, especially during times when there's been no new information, for an idealized version of the game to develop in people's minds, making the final, real product disappointing. So as the eternal killjoy that I am, I'd suggest keeping expectations low and trying to approach Elden Ring on its own terms. That being said, if I can't date the horse, I'm gonna lose my mind. Before wrapping up this video, I want to take a quick look at what Fromsoft tropes people have come to expect in Elden Ring. This comes out most clearly in the fake lore and boss discussions that Elden Ring hollows have been churning out on the subreddit. A poison swamp is entirely expected. A Patches type character and the Moonlight Greatsword are forecasted to appear. When it comes to bosses, the most famous character of the Elden Ring fakeverse is Glaive Master Hodir, and depending on the post, of which there are 166, he has anywhere from 3 to 5 phases, and he's not really so bad once you can figure out how to deal with the one move that two-shots you. The results aren't very surprising, but that makes sense given how iterative Fromsoft is, and how much they enjoy recurring characters and references to their other titles. I imagine that there will be plenty of these elements present. Miyazaki described Elden Ring as an evolution of Dark Souls, not a revolution. I think that Fromsoftware wants to do something new and interesting that goes beyond Dark Souls, but that starting totally from scratch would inhibit their ability to pursue these ideas, and having a familiar foundation provides a stable jumping off point. My own personal hope is that these familiar elements are in service of pursuing something new. While there is a certain comfort in familiarity, making this video has reminded me how much of my affection for Dark Souls stems from the uncertainty and mystery of my first playthrough, and how much that familiarity is not in service of pursuing something new, but my own nostalgia. Which brings me to what I think is ultimately what we really want from Elden Ring. That feeling of mystery, terror, and excitement we all experience playing a Souls game for the first time. We might not get to literally play a Souls game for the first time again, but getting a fresh experience filled with mysterious, opaque mechanics and a new world to explore is not a bad compromise, and one that I hope Fromsoft delivers on with Elden Ring. And also include Glaive Master Hodir in the game. That would be amazing. So that is what we want for Elden Ring, besides literally any more information. Overhauled magic, improved online multiplayer with weird asynchronous elements, and fresh ideas for combat and traversal. But Fromsoft, we will take pretty much anything if you'll just tell us about it. I hope you liked this video, and I'd love to see your own personal thoughts in the comments on what you'd like to see in Elden Ring, and what Fromsoft tropes you think there will be in the game. If you want the complete breakdown on Elden Ring information, subscribe to this channel, where I will be following the game's development in my Elden Ring So Far series. Thanks for watching.